Već smo pomenuli gospodina Mazura, ja ću pokušati da samo u 2 rečenice predstavim svima vama njegov rad. Predsjednik je udruženja AVERE i generalni direktor PSPI-a. Bio je uključen u razvoj najvećih infrastrukturnih investicija u Poljskoj, autor brojnih publikacija iz oblasti energetike. Velika nam je čast da gospodin Mazur danas govori i podeli svoje iskustvo i negde da nam na uvid podatke koji nam dolaze iz čitave Evrope. Ambasadora Poljske jesmo čuli da Poljska ima čemu danas nauči što se tiče iskustva i podataka, tako da ono što sledi jeste predstavljanje.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I will speak English as I do not speak Serbian, unfortunately, still. Dear Primos, dear friends of Emobility, I'm very happy to be here. I got to tell you that that's the second time I'm in Belgrade. The first time was in January 2008, and I keep remember because that was during Australian Open. I'm quite a big tennis fan, and if you remember, I suppose you remember that that was the very first Australian Open that was won by Novak Djokovic. And quite a lot of things, I thought about it in a plane, quite a lot of things are changing. Belgrade is changing, Serbia is changing, E-mobility is changing, but one thing is not changing. Novak Djokovic is still winning Australian Open. So, good for him. I hope I will be able to say the same about Iga Świątek in the coming years. All right. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not here to discuss tennis. I'm here to tell you a couple of things about e-mobility, and I will divide my presentation into 2 parts. I would like to tell you a little bit about AVERE, European Association for Electromobility, and about PSPA, Polish Alternative Fuels Association, and then I'll try to tell you a couple of things about what is happening on the market. Let's start with AVERE. We are 45 years active on the market. We were founded in 1978. So I got to say that someone has a very good idea in 1978. I was not even born, but there were some people that thought that e-mobility will be the future, and they were right. It is a future, or it is even present right now. We've got more than 65 members in 26 different European states, and we are growing. We are representing the whole e-mobility value chain, as you can see, OEMs, CPOs, EV users, public institutions, and national associations. That's the board. So we are here together with Bart. I get the huge pleasure to be the president of AVERE. Bart is vice president. And as you can see, the board is full of people from all over Europe. And that's something that makes AVERE quite unique, that we consist of 3 different group of members. The first one, and I think the most important one, are national associations. We've got more than 20 associations from different countries in Europe. Then we've got quite a lot of companies, like, for example, Tesla and some other OEMs or infrastructure companies. And the third group are research associations, technical universities, and all institutions that deal with knowledge. So that makes a very kind of a special association, because we can really have quite different perspectives on the future of e-mobility. What are our goals? Our goals, I would say, are 3. We've got 3 top priorities. We would like to see 100% new zero-emission vehicles by 2030, so 5 years ahead of the target by European Union. We would like to see fully decarbonized European road transport by 2050. And I think that's right now the biggest challenge and top priority for all of us. We would like to see Europe a world leader in electromobility, because we see that the world is all into e-mobility, and we've got to find ourselves a very good place on the market. How we are trying to achieve those 3 successes and how we are coping with challenges by working in different working groups. We are based in Brussels. That's because there quite a lot of right now is happening. I'll tell you in a moment about it. But we are mostly focused on policy. There are quite a lot of acronyms, as you can see on the slide, but that's our daily reality. We are dealing with all those acronyms because those are directives, those are regulations that are right now shaping the market. And we are in a crucial moment when the market is being shaped. That's why we've got to be very, very ambitious, and we've got to be working every single day to have all those acronyms, meaning the acceleration of zero-emission transport. I will pick 3 of those acronyms later on to discuss what, from our perspective, is most important right now. And my second hat right now, I'm the president of AVERE, but as well I'm a managing director of PSPA. So right now, a couple of things about PSPA. PSPA is much younger association than AVERE. We were founded in 2016, so 7 years ago. But we are quite a big association. We are one of the biggest in Europe. Right now we got nearly 300 members. We are quite big as an association. More than 30 people are working every day in PSPA. So we are doing quite a lot of projects in many different fields. Our members are from different business sectors, from the whole e-mobility value chain. In total, 500,000 people are working in our member companies, and our member revenues is 500 billion zloty, so it's 16% of Polish GDP. I will not go through all our members. As you can see, all those logos are quite well known to you. OEMs, CPOs, infrastructure manufacturers, petrol stations, chains, retailers, law companies, consultancies, lithium-ion industry. All those companies are our members, and that's, I think, very, very important to underline that this is something that gives us the strength to be able to answer, I would say, all the questions there are, because we got all relevant players as our members. We are divided into 4 offices. The most important one is our Research and Analysis Center. So we are gathering quite a lot of data. We are dealing with this data, and we are trying to build the future based on knowledge. That's why the second most important center is Legislative Center, and the third one is Competence Center. We are working through 10 different committees. Having nearly 300 members means that you've got to divide your work, because your members are focused on different part of the markets. We are conducting every single year around 50 projects. And what is our goal? Our ultimate goal is to see the growth of e-mobility, and we believe and we conducted a very deep research to prove it, that in 2035, e-mobility sector can account for 5% of Polish GDP. So for the Polish economy, and I would say the same about the European economy, e-mobility can be the most important part, or at least one of the most important parts. And right now, how the market is looking like. Quite a lot already have been said here, but let me give you some numbers. But first of all, let's answer the first very important question: why e-mobility? You can see on this slide why, because the transport sector is responsible for 1/4 of EU greenhouse gas emissions, and that's why we've got to obviously cope with every single sector, but we've got to see that transport is one of our top priorities. From the transport sector, road transport is the most important one, 72%. Then water transport and civil aviation. That's why in the future we'll focus as well on those two aspects as well. But right now we are focusing on road transport. And from road transport, from those 72%, 43% are passenger cars, but nearly 20% are heavy-duty vehicles. And it can maybe not look so bad, but the ratio is quite different when you will count the total number. I can give you an example of Poland. We've got 20 million plus passenger vehicles and just 1 million heavy-duty vehicles. We are a European leader. We get 1 million. But still, 1 million means that just 1 million vehicles to compare with 20 million passenger vehicles means that heavy-duty industry, it's really the biggest challenge for us. And that's why in Poland, and I suppose right now in Europe, we are quite concerned about the future of heavy-duty industry. And that's why all those regulations and directives I will tell you in a moment about are so important. And right now about the policy. It's not like it started 2 or 3 years ago. I suppose we can say that from the 90s, or at least from the very beginning of the 21st century, we were already active in trying to change the market. But actually, just a couple of years ago, European Union created a climate law, and there was a climate deal, a Green Deal, as it's called. And then in 2021, based on climate law, to have some concrete actions and concrete goals, we got the Fit for 55 package, the most important piece of legislation in our field, that's for sure. Then after the war in Ukraine, we got another acceleration, Repower EU, meaning that we get to cut our dependence on Russian gas. And that's all means that right now we've got plenty of things to do, because we've got all those acronyms to discuss and then to implement. And let me start with the first one, I think the most important one, AVERE in short, Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation. And it's already being known that it will start next year, after the 13th of April. And what is very important is that at the end of the name is regulation instead of directive, because regulation means that after 13th of April, it's gonna be a law in all member states. So you do not have to implement it as a member country. Why it's so important? Because it sets a framework for the rollout of public charging infrastructure. And then, as we heard today, infrastructure is the key to success. So we've got in AVERE binding targets, not only for light-duty vehicles, but as well for heavy-duty vehicles, for the first time in the history of e-mobility. So that's why it's so important. We can find in AVERE quite a lot of important chapters, but I think that binding targets are the most important ones, because we've got the very first targets for 2025 being set, then for 2027, and then for 2030. And what are the targets? For example, on 10T road network, every 60 kilometer, we will have to have charging infrastructure, both for light-duty vehicles and heavy-duty vehicles. And in a country like Poland, we are, as it was already being said, leader in heavy-duty industry. We do not have a single charging infrastructure hub for heavy-duty vehicles. So that's why this piece of legislation is so important, because we've got binding targets until the end of 2025, 15% of 10T road network in Poland, so in simply terms, highways, will have to be equipped with charging stations for heavy-duty vehicles. Another very, very important act is Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, EPBD in short. And why it's important? Because the AVERE was focused on public accessible charging stations. And EPBD is focused on private charging stations. And we all know that we would like to charge our electric vehicles at home or at work, where the car is being parked for the most of time. So that's why it's important, and I've seen on the presentation about the Serbian market that here it's a challenge as well to be able to install charging station in the underground garage, for example. And that's what we can find in EPBD, that every new building and every building that will be renovated will have to be ready to install charging station, plus some charging station should be installed there. So that's why it's so important. And the third very, very important act is RED III, Renewable Energy Directive. Because we are discussing quite a lot about the transport sector, but without green energy, we cannot see the whole picture. So we've got to be sure that the energy coming from charging stations will be green. That's why RED III directive is so important, because there are some binding targets there. 42.5 energy that will be produced and used in European Union by 2030 will have to come from the renewables. That's a binding target, and we would like to see even the higher number, 45%, till 2030. So for a country, once again, like Poland or Serbia, because we are quite the same in our energy mix, that's gonna be a very big challenge. So those three acts, two directives. So right now we'll be implementing those two directives, EPBD and RED III, and one regulation. It will start next year in April. Are important because we've got to deal with the infrastructure, and right now that's absolutely the most important part of the story. We've got to be prepared for millions of electric vehicles on our roads, and right now we are not prepared. The grid is not prepared, and that's why we've got to deal with that. I think that Bart in the second part of the conference will tell you more about what can EVs bring to the grid, for example, flexibility, because that's the future. And I think that the revolution is not only happening in the automotive sector, but as well, or maybe even mainly, is happening in the energy sector, and that's going to be a huge change. All right, as I'm from Poland, and it was already said by our ambassador that we like numbers, I like numbers as well, so let me give you some numbers, how the market is changing. And I like this slide because it's really showing how the market is young. It's very young. A couple of years ago, there was no market. The market in Europe started around 2018, 2019, and that's a fact. We can see the numbers. Because of regulations, because of the CO2 emission standards that entered into force in 2019, the market is changing from this moment. So just in 4 years' time, the huge shift happened. Right now, we've got more than 5 million battery electric vehicles on European roads. In the last 12 months, nearly 2 million battery electric vehicles were registered. So that's quite a lot. And this slide, I think, is the most interesting one, because here you can see the change. And the change happened in just 4 years. As you can see, in 2019, that's about new cars being registered in European Union. So in 2019, ICE vehicles, so petrol and diesel vehicles, were responsible for nearly 90% of registration, 90%. In just 4 years, in 2023, right now, it's just 50%. So you can see how this market is changing. And we're speaking about millions of vehicles being registered every single year in Europe. So you can see who is losing, you can see who is gaining. Battery electric vehicles in 2019, nearly 2%. Right now, nearly 15%. The same about hybrid vehicles, starting from nearly 6%, right now nearly 25%. So you can see that the market already find a way, and e-mobility is the future. We are sure about it. Quite the same about charging infrastructure. We are always complaining about the number of charging points being available, and that's completely understandable. We would like to see more and more charging stations, but the number is growing. The number is growing significantly. In the last couple of years, nearly 1,000%. It sounds incredible, and that's really happening. And right now, we are seeing more and more DC charging stations roll out all over Europe. And it's still not enough. That's why we are forecasting, or it's better to say, International Energy Agency is forecasting that we will be on a level in Europe, 1 million charging points, public accessible in 2025. Right now, it's more than 500,000 charging points publicly accessible. And in 2030, so just in 6 years' time, it's going to be about 2 million charging points publicly accessible. So you can see the market is changing. And it's changing as well in Poland. That is the last part of my presentation. Poland is changing as well. We got right now nearly 100,000 electric vehicles on our roads. Half of them are battery electric vehicles, half of them are plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Out of this number, more than 5,000 are electric vans, and that's a part of the market that is growing the fastest because of the subsidies, because of the fact that logistic companies can have a positive business case based on battery electric vehicles, so they are choosing what is better for their budget. Quite the same about charging infrastructure. The number is growing. Right now we've got 6,000 plus charging stations. Overall, we are the 6th biggest market in European Union in the number of passenger vehicles. We've got 20 million plus passenger vehicles. We've got 1 million, as it was already mentioned a couple of times, heavy-duty vehicles. So we are a very, very big market, and that's very true that we are following the footsteps of countries like the Netherlands or Germany, but e-mobility is growing as well in the CE, without doubt. We are forecasting as PSPA that we'll reach 1 million battery electric vehicle by 2030, and we'll add to that around 500,000 plug-in hybrid vehicles. So it's going to be about 1.5 electric vehicles in total. Every single year, we are registering 500,000 new and 1 million used vehicles in Poland. So still the number is not so high. It should be higher, and we are working on that. Because I think that every single country has something special and should be focused on a couple of sectors. And we are focused not only Poland, but there are quite a lot of countries being focused on lithium-ion batteries market. Right now, we are the biggest market, but we know that Hungary is doing quite a lot to change the situation. For us, right now, lithium-ion batteries are the biggest export sector from Poland. So 1.5 in general accounts from our export is about e-mobility. And that's one of quite a lot of examples I can tell you, but I do not want to bore you. I would like at the end to show you that we believe, and we are doing quite a lot in Poland, but as well in Europe, because the same research right now we'll be doing in Europe, that e-mobility can be very, very important for the European economy. It's already very important because automotive industry is very important, and we know that we are losing a couple of battles, but we need to win overall. And in our case, 5% of Polish GDP can come from the e-mobility sector, and I think that the European Union or European number can be even higher. All right, so that's all from my side. That was a huge pleasure. And thank you very much.